Welcome back to the Tutoring Pros channel. In this video, we're going to be going over the Passport to Advanced Math portion of the SAT. This is going to be a full review of this portion. If you didn't know, the Math SAT is broken down into 4 subsections, Passport to Advanced Math being one of the more important ones. So I encourage you to go through the entire video, try some of the questions on your own, because at the end of the day, this is going to help you improve your score tremendously. So we'll go ahead and get started with number 1. For number 1, we have a fraction of complex numbers. And the question asks, if the expression above is rewritten in the form of a plus bi, where a and b are real numbers, what is the value of a? What we need to do first is multiply the top and bottom of this complex fraction by the conjugate of the bottom. So the conjugate is the same exact terms that we have in the bottom. The only difference is the sign in the middle is going to change. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom by 3 plus 2i. On the denominator, we have 3 minus 2i. So we need to multiply top and bottom by 3 plus 2i. For the top and the bottom, we're going to need to FOIL the two binomials together, the two complex numbers. For the top, first we're going to do 8 times 3, then 8 times 2i, then negative I times 3, and then negative I times 2i. Then we're going to divide this and we're going to FOIL the bottom as well. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2i is going to be plus 6i. Negative 2i times 3 is minus 6i. Negative 2i times 2i is going to be minus 4i squared. Now we're going to combine like terms. Something to keep in mind is I squared turns into negative 1. For the top, we're going to have 24. We're going to combine the two terms in the middle. 16i minus 3i is going to give us plus 13i. And remember that I squared is negative 1. So we'll have negative 2 times negative 1, which will give us plus 2. And we're going to divide this by 9. 6i minus 6i, those two cancel. And then negative 4 times negative 1 is going to be plus 4. This is going to be equal to, we're going to combine the like terms on top. 24 plus 2 is 26, plus 13i over 9 plus 4 is 13. The next step is we have to separate our fraction. We're going to put 26 over 13 and 13i over 13. So we'll have 26 over 13 plus 13 over 13i. And then the last step is to simplify both of these fractions. 26 divided by 13 is 2. And then plus 13 over 13 is 1. And then we'll have I. So if we go back to what the question is asking, they want us to rewrite this expression in the form of a plus bi, which is what we did here. And they want to know what the value of a is. A is the number that comes first. So we see that the answer is 2. For number 2, the question asks if 3x minus y equals 12, what is the value of 8 to the power of x divided by 2 to the power of y? What we need to do here is break down 8 into 2 to some power. So we know that 8 is 2 to the third power. So we can rewrite this fraction as 2 to the third raised to the power of x divided by 2 to the power of y. When we have an exponent raised to an exponent, we multiply them together. So the top part of this fraction is going to become 2 to the power of 3 times x. And we're going to divide this by 2 to the power of y. When we have two of the same base dividing, we can subtract the exponents together. So since we have 2 to the power of 3x divided by 2 to the power of y, this can simplify to 2 to the power of 3x minus y. And if we look at the beginning of our question, they say that 3x minus y equals 12. So since we have 2 to the power of 3x minus y, this is going to be equivalent to 2 to the power of 12, because 3x minus y is equal to 12. And we get that our answer is 2 to the power of 12, which is answer choice A. For number 3, we have which of the following is equal to a to the power of 2 over 3 for all values of a. When we have an exponent that's a fraction, the numerator of that fraction is the exponent of our variable. So since 2 is the number on top, we're going to have a to the power of 2. The denominator of the fraction is the root or the radical. So we're going to have the cubed root. That 3 in the bottom is the 3 for the root. Cubed root of a squared. 2 is the number on top, so that's going to be the exponent of a. And if we look at our answer choices, this is answer choice D. For number 4, we have the square root of 2 times k squared plus 17 minus x equals 0. The question asks if k is greater than 0 and x equals 7, in the equation above, what is the value of k? So first, we're going to plug in what x is equal to. X is 7. And we're going to have the square root of 2k squared plus 17 minus 7 equals 0. We can add 7 to both sides, and we'll have the square root of 2k squared plus 17 equals 7. Next, we have to get rid of the square root. The way that we do that is we square both sides. On the left side, the square root of something squared eliminates both the square root and the square. So we're going to be left with 2k squared plus 17. And this is going to be equal to 7 squared, which is 49. Next, the objective is to try to get k by itself. We have to subtract 17 on both sides. And then we'll have 2k squared equals 32. Next, we're going to divide each side by 2. And then we'll have k squared equals 16. And the last step is to take the square root of both sides to get rid of the squared in k squared. When we take the square root of both sides, we end up with k equals plus or minus 4. Whenever you have to draw the square root, that gives us an answer of plus or minus whatever the number is. Notice in the question it says if k is greater than 0. So if we have our two answers of positive 4 and negative 4, only positive 4 is greater than 0. And that'll give us answer choice C. For number 5, we have which expression is equivalent to y to the power of 1 over 8 times y to the power of 3 over 4 to the power of 3 over 2. So if we follow PEMDAS, we have to simplify the exponents first and then multiply. So what we need to deal with first is y to the power of 3 over 4 to the power of 3 over 2. The way that we simplify an exponent raised to another exponent is by multiplying those two fractions together. We're going to have y to the power of 1 over 8 times y to the power of 3 over 4 times 3 over 2. We'll simplify this to y to the power of 1 over 8 times y to the power, and then we multiply these two fractions together. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8. Now that we have the same base multiplying together, we can add the exponents together. So this is going to simplify to y to the power of 1 over 8 plus 9 over 8. And this is going to be equal to y to the power of 10 over 8. We can simplify this fraction. 10 over 8, if we divide both of those numbers by 2, this is going to simplify to y to the power of 5 over 4. And if we apply the same logic we did in one of the previous questions, the denominator of this fraction gives us the radical, and the numerator of the fraction gives us the exponent of y. This is going to be y to the power of 5. And if we look at the answer choices, we can see that the first answer choice is the answer. For number 6, we have for a polynomial p of x, the value of p of 3 is negative 2. Which of the following must be true about p of x? In order for something to be a factor, which answer choice A, B, and C all have, the number that we plug in for x has to result in 0. So if we had p of 3 equals 0, then x minus 3 would be considered a factor, because when we plug in the number inside the parentheses, what x is equal to, we end up with 0. Since this is not the case here, let me erase this. Since this is not the case here, we cannot determine that any of these are factors of p of x. And the only conclusion that we can come to is that negative 2 is the remainder of p of x if we have x minus 3 as one of the factors. So the remainder of p of x is divided by x minus 3 is 2. That's going to end up being the answer. The main conclusion that you can draw is that x minus 5, x minus 2, and x plus 2 will only be considered factors of p of x if, when we plugged in a certain number, it gives us 0. And as you can see from the question, that's not what they're saying. They're saying p of 3 is negative 2. In order for it to be a factor, it would have had to have been is 0. For number 7, we have h equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t. The equation above expresses the approximate height h in meters of a ball t seconds after it is launched vertically upwards from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? So the key to this question is the very last sentence. It says after approximately how many seconds, that means that we're looking for t, will the ball hit the ground? So we have to think about what would the height of the ball be when it hits the ground. That means that the height has to be 0. So instead of h, we can plug in 0 for h. And we'll get 0 equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 25t, and that's equal to 0. We have to see what do these two terms have in common. They both have a t in common, and we'll be left with negative 4.9t plus 25. and this is still equal to 0. We're going to set the inside of the parentheses equal to 0, and we'll get negative 4.9t plus 25 equals 0. First, we subtract 25 on each side, and we'll get 4.9t equals negative 25. The last step is to divide negative 4.9 on each side. Negative 4.9 is really close to negative 5. And if we divide negative 5 on both sides, we'll see that t is very close to 5 seconds, which gives us answer choice D being the answer for number 7. For number 8, we have the expression 5x minus 2 divided by x plus 3 is equivalent to which of the following? What we have to do in this question is actually pretty tricky. We need to figure out something from negative 2 in order for us to simplify 5x plus or minus something and x plus 3. So in order to simplify 5x plus something and x plus 3, we would have to have 5x plus 15 over x plus 3. In order to turn negative 2 into plus 15, we would have to compensate by subtracting 17 right after, because 15 minus 17 is the same as negative 2. So what we did here, we are actually allowed to do. Negative 2 is 15 minus 17, so we can make that change. For the next step, we're going to split up the fraction. We're going to put the first two terms over x plus 3, and then we're going to have minus 17 over x plus 3. This is going to give us 5x plus 15 over x plus 3 minus 17 over x plus 3. For the first fraction, on the top we can factor out of 5, and we'll have 5 times x plus 3 over x plus 3 minus 17 over x plus 3. For the fraction on the left, we can cancel the x plus 3 on the left, and we're left with 5 minus 17 over x plus 3. And if we look at our answer choices, this is answer choice D. Number 9 asks, which of the following complex numbers is equivalent to 3 minus 5i divided by 8 plus 2i? For this one, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. Remember, those are the exact same terms, with the sign in the middle being different. So we have 3 minus 5i divided by 8 plus 2i. The conjugate of the bottom will be 8 minus 2i. Whenever you have two complex numbers dividing, the first thing that should come to your mind is conjugate of the bottom. You have to multiply both the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. So if we FOIL the two top complex numbers, 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times negative 2i is minus 6i. Negative 5i times 8 is negative 40i. And then negative 5i times negative 2i is plus 10i squared. This is all going to be divided by 8 times 8. 8 times negative 2i. Oh, I messed up here. 8 times 8 is 64. Then minus 16i. 2i times 8 is plus 16i. 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared. We're going to combine like terms and turn the I squared into negative 1. That's going to give us 24 minus 46i minus 10 all over 64. Negative 16i plus 16i, those two cancel. And then we're going to have plus 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 gives us positive 4. Next, we're going to combine like terms on the top. 24 minus 10 is 14. Minus 46i all over 64 plus 4 is 68. The last step is to separate the fraction. We're going to get 14 over 68 minus 46 over 68i. And then finally, we need to simplify both of these fractions. We can divide all the numbers by 2. If we divide the first fraction by 2, we get 7 over 34. Minus, if we divide top and bottom of the second fraction by 2, we get 23 over 34i. And if you look at the answers, this is the same as C. For number 10, we're looking for the sum of 7 plus 3i and negative 8 plus 9i. When we have a plus sign in between the two sets of parentheses, it's almost as if the parentheses are not there. So it's going to be 7 plus 3i minus 8 plus 9i. Next, we have to combine like terms. 7 and negative 8 go together. 7 minus 8 is negative 1. And 3i and 9i go together. 3i plus 9i gives us 12i. And if we look at the answer choices, the answer is A. For number 11, they ask what are the solutions to the quadratic equation 4x squared minus 8x minus 12 equals 0. The first step is that all of these terms have a 4 in common. So we can factor out a 4, and we'll have x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. If we divide both sides by 4, the 4 on the left cancels out. And then 0 divided by 4 is still 0. Next, we're going to create two sets of parentheses. We're going to write x first for both. We drop the first sign, and we ask ourselves a negative times what gives us another negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. Next, we're going to find factors of 3 that subtract to make 2. 3 and 1, when you subtract them, they give you 2. The bigger number is always going to go first. The last step is to set each of these factors equal to 0. First, x minus 3 equals 0, means that x equals 3. And x plus 1 equals 0, means that x equals negative 1. And if we look at the answer choices, x equals 3, x equals negative 1 is B. For number 12, the question asks, the function f is defined by a polynomial. Some values of x and f of x are shown in the table above. Which of the following must be a factor of f of x? Remember that f of x and y are the same thing, and in order for it to be considered a factor, when we plug in an x value, it has to result in f of x becoming 0. So first we're going to look at our table, and we're going to see which value of f of x gives us 0. And that's going to be this ordered pair of 4, 0. So since the x value of 4 results in the y being 0, we need to see which one of these factors, when we plug x equals 4 into it, gives us 0. For A, 4 minus 2 is 2. For B, 4 minus 3 is 1. And for C, 4 minus 4 gives us 0. So it has to be C. For number 13, we have x squared minus 10x plus 14 equals 0. One solution to the given equation can be written as x equals 5 plus the square root of n, where n is a constant. What is the value of n? So on the inside of the square root, we have b squared minus 4 times a times c. And this is inside of a square root. We're going to get the answer of what's inside of the square root, and then we need to simplify it. Whatever's left on the inside of the square root after we simplify it is going to be our n. So first we're going to plug in b squared minus 4ac. Our b is negative 10, so b squared would be 100, minus 4, a is 1, c is 14. This is going to give us 100, minus 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 14 is 52. That's not correct. It's going to be 56. And then 100 minus 56 is 44. So we know 44 is 4 times 11, and then 4 is 2 times 2. Whenever we're simplifying a radical, we need a pair for it to come out once. So we're going to write 2 on the outside one time because we have a pair of 2's, and then we're going to have square root of 11 left over. Since 11 is what's left over on the inside of the square root, we can see that n equals 11. For number 14, we have a graph, and the question asks which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation of the graph shown in the xy plane above, from which of the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as constants in the equation. So we have to look to see which one of these answer choices gives us the vertex as constants in the equation. So if we look at A and B, whenever we have two parentheses with x plus x minus within each of them, these identify the x-intercepts, which is not the vertex. So it can't be A, it can't be B. C has x times x minus 2 minus 15. This is really close because vertex form gives us A times x minus h squared plus k. We have to make sure we have parentheses with x plus or minus something with this squared. This squared is the identifying point that tells us that we have a vertex form. And as you can see, C does not have that, but D does have that. So D is going to be the answer. For number 15, we have which of the following equations has a graph in the xy plane for which y is always greater than or equal to -1. So which one of these has a minimum value that is greater than or equal to -1? What we're going to do in order to figure out what the answer is here is we're going to plug in x equals 0 into each of the answer choices. If we plug it into A, we're going to have 0 minus 2, which is -2. We're looking for something that has -1 or greater. And -2 is less than -1, so it can't be A. If we plug it into B, 0 squared is 0. Minus 2 is still -2, so it can't be B. If we plug in 0 into C, we'll have 0 minus -2, which is -2 squared, which gives us +4. And if we plug 0 into D, which is the last one, 0 cubed is 0. 0 minus 2 is -2, so it can't be D. So just by going with the process of elimination, plugging in x equals 0, we can see that C is the answer. If you learned something new in this video, make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so that you're up to date on these SAT math videos. And if you're looking for another math video just like this, make sure that you watch this video on the Heart of Algebra full review. I'll see you in the next one.